You have certainly heard about primates, but what exactly are primates? Call them the gardeners of the forest, but primates play a very important role in seed dispersal and helping to keep an intact ecosystem, helping to provide man with constant water, fighting against floods, and equally other ecosystem services. Now, but despite this enormous role played by primates, primates, just like other wildlife species, have come under immense pressure over the years. Now, let's bring you some quick statistics. 69% of primates across the globe are at risk of extinction. 43% of primate species are classified either critically endangered or endangered. In today's edition of the program, we are going to be taking you into the world of primates. We are coming to you from the town of Friendship, Limbe, precisely at Summit Beach Hotel. Stay with us. Our guest in today's edition of the program is a biologist with a master's degree in primate conservation from the prestigious Oxford Brookes University in the United Kingdom. He is the manager of the Able Forest Research Program and is equally the vice chair of the IUCN Great Apes section. He is Dr. Ekoge Abre. Thank you so much for joining us in today's edition of the program.
Thank you, Gina. Glad to have me in the program.
Now, we're talking about primates conservation, but before we delve into primate conservation, let's talk generally. What are primates and what are the different types of primates we have?
Primates are this group of animals that share certain characteristics, and this, I would say, include humans as well. For instance, they have forward-facing eyes, they have a thumb. So these are some of the characteristics of what we call primates, and they are unique in the fact that they share so many qualities with humans. And I'll talk especially of great apes like chimpanzees and gorillas that genetically share like 99% of genes with humans.
When you say they share 99% of their genes with humans, what exactly does that mean?
So,
does that mean I'm a distant cousin of a gorilla?
Definitely, you know, I mean, I'm talking of your genetic makeup, you know, what actually is you, you know. So what you find in you find 99% of that in chimpanzees and gorillas. It makes us really close cousins, as you put it, yes.
Now, let's look at the different types of primates we have in Cameroon. Talk to us about, I know you already mentioned gorillas, chimpanzees, but broadly speaking, what are the different types of primates we have in Cameroon? I mean, in what forests are hosting these primates? And talk to us also a bit about their population.
This is a great question. I would like to put this into a context, okay? Let's take Africa. Madagascar, which you know is off the coast, in southern Africa. Madagascar has more than 100 species of primates, and this is understood because Madagascar has been isolated from the mainland for millions and millions of years. So the primates, especially lemurs that are found here, have evolved over the years, and they have this unique suite of species that is different from what you find all over the world and in Africa. Then let's look at the DRC Congo.
Okay.
The DRC, it has a mammoth size. It's so big, but it has 36 species of primates. Okay, so I mean this you can link it up with the sheer size of this country. But Cameroon comes third.
Okay.
Okay, so there are 32 species of primates in Cameroon. I mean, look at where Cameroon is. I mean the size, and we have 32 species of primates. This is really, really important because in terms of diversity of primates in the world, Cameroon stands really like high at the top. And in terms of what species we find, I mean, I won't be enumerating the 32 species here, but we have, groups of species. We have what we call prosimians, and these are mainly nocturnal primates that, of course, move about, do their activities mainly in the night. You have like galagos, what is generally called bush babies.
Okay.
You have potos. Then we have guenons, which are, I would say, smaller monkeys. And this, you have a wide range of species from the putty nose or the crown guenon. These are the common ones that people know. Then the medium-sized monkeys, which are also big. You have the drills, you have mandrills, you have baboons. this is, you know, all the diversity. And of course, we talked about great apes earlier. In terms of great apes, there are two main species in Cameroon. We have chimpanzees and gorillas, but each of these has two subspecies.
Okay.
For the chimpanzees, we have the central chimpanzee in the Congo Basin, and you know Cameroon is part of the Congo Basin.
Okay.
And for the Nigeria-Cameroon chimpanzee in the north of the Sanagadas in the Gulf of Guinea rainforest, you know, you have the Nigeria-Cameroon chimpanzee. Then in terms of gorillas, you have the Western Lowland gorillas, which is part of the Western gorilla, of course. Western Lowland gorilla too in this in the Congo Basin.
Okay.
And, you know, in the Gulf of Guinea, you know, towards the Nigeria-Cameroon border, you have what we call the Cross River gorilla. So, I mean, there's a huge diversity.
Yes, probably you already mentioned some of the areas where they are found, but I would really like for someone who is watching who may not understand these things, can you tell us some of the forest blocks in Cameroon that pride themselves in hosting this species?
You know, I said earlier that Cameroon is small but hosts this diversity of primate species, and I think all that is linked to the different ecological regions that we find in Cameroon.
Okay.
I talked earlier of the Congo Basin south of the Sanaga River. This is really, you know, a key area.
Okay.
Then north of the Sanaga River, we have the Congo, the Gulf of Guinea, you know, rainforest, which these two, that's the Gulf of Guinea and the Congo Basin, they merge, you know, in the center of Cameroon, producing what we call this mosaic of habitats, especially around the Adamawa, which has been termed an ecotone. So it's, you know, a range of woodland, forest, savanna, which is, you know, like just a great melting pot of different species. And of course, going further north of Cameroon, we have what we call the Sahelian, you know, region. And, you know, all these different habitats give in for, you know, this diversity of, you know, biodiversity. And I'll tell you some other thing, you know, what we call the River Sanaga in Cameroon that crosses, you know, from the Adamawa going through to the center of Cameroon is a great biogeographical divide. Okay. So we have different species, you know, that have evolved on either side, and this is so true of primates. You have sister species, you know, like mandrills are found south of the Sanaga River, while drills are found north of the Sanaga River. I talked of Western central chimpanzees and Nigeria-Cameroon chimpanzees. Gorillas are the same. We have red-eared monkeys are found, you know, north, while south of it we find red-tailed monkeys. So, I mean, this gives for that diversity.
You've really been able to really explain, I mean, about the different types of primates and where they are found, and it really gives a picture of how diverse Cameroon's biodiversity is and where they are located. But now, there are people who are watching this program who are getting to understand about primates, and but they may not understand what is the importance of primates, especially in the ecosystem. How important are primates in the ecosystem?
You know, every single species out there, whether you talk of, you know, bacteria or birds or elephants, you know, like just everything plays a key role, you know, in the functioning of the ecosystem and provide what we'll call ecosystem services. Okay. So primates are not left out. You know, there are several primates that have not been studied in depth in Cameroon because of the wide diversity, and maybe there's not so much interest in this, but some of those that have been studied, for instance, chimpanzees and gorillas, you find that these are species that are what we call frugivores, because they eat mainly fruits. And so when they eat fruits, they swallow the seeds. So imagine like a parent plant here, you swallow the seed, it swallows the seeds here, and will walk, you know, maybe kilometers, and then deposit those seeds somewhere, you know, and, you know, they will germinate and produce, you know, like a tree out there. So, I mean, this is a function. You said earlier that, I mean, the animals are gardeners of the forest. And yes, this is the role played by, you know, most primates, because they are frugivores. Okay. And one thing we should know as well is that some species of plants, you know, their seeds will only germinate and thrive after passing through the guts of animals. So, I mean, chimpanzees, gorillas do this, but elephants are as important as well. So, I mean, these are all roles that if we look at, you know, the diversity and richness of the forest as we see it today, is thanks to the animals that live there.
I mean, we spend millions trying to do reforestation programs, whereas these animals have been helping us for free to plant trees and keeping the forest and the ecosystem intact.
Definitely. Yeah.
But now you have enumerated some of the benefits of primates. There's equally ecotourism. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who travel miles just to come and catch a glimpse of what a gorilla look like, or even if they don't get to see the gorilla, just to hear the sound of the gorilla or a chimp is so gratifying. Talk to us about the ecotourism potential of primates.
I mean, this is a huge resource in some countries. Outside the case of Rwanda, outside the case of Uganda, where people pay, like you say, millions and millions, just to come and see these animals in the wild. And, it's a huge potential for Cameroon as well, given the diversity we have, which other countries that are actually enjoying these benefits today don't really have. So it's a sector that is really supposed to be annexed. I know in the southern part of Cameroon, there are a few areas where there is some habituation of gorillas, especially now for wildlife tourism. And if this were to go through, I tell you, there's nothing like seeing a gorilla or chimpanzee in its natural habitat. This is something that we get to see on TV, on films, but if you see that in the wild, it's really gratifying. And yeah, for most people, they really want to see. But yeah, if I go into the forest, just seeing chimpanzee nests or gorilla nests and hearing them vocalize, I get gratified already, because I know exactly what I'm looking for.
And you know that exactly they are in this particular forest.
So this, I mean, tourists will not have, those techniques to be able to pick out things they'll want to see. And, the way our forest is, it hides a lot of things, In most of the places across the country, this potential has not really been harnessed, because it takes a lot, to be able to habituate populations of gorillas or chimpanzees to humans. And if you have all the pressure, including hunting pressure, on these animals, habituating them is actually endangering them so much. So I think, yes, we've got the potential. We can also, promote not only wildlife tourism, but also research. But most of the people are in for, like seeing the animals, which is something that's difficult in the wild, unless the animals are habituated. Yeah, for researchers, they're looking for nests. They're listening out to vocalization, and just through this circumstantial evidence, they can tell you what is in the forest. This is not the same with tourists who want to see the animals. So I mean, we are getting there. There are efforts to habituate gorillas in parts of Cameroon, and I think eventually we'll get there.
Now, if primates are this important, they should be protected. Let's talk about the law in Cameroon. What protection exists for primates in Cameroon?
Primates are just, a small subset of biodiversity in Cameroon, and I think our government, the Cameroon government, has enacted laws, the wildlife law, the forestry law, all of this, to protect biodiversity in Cameroon. If I talk about the wildlife law, especially that's the 1994 wildlife law, it set down, rules, on how to manage our biodiversity, especially animals. So animals in Cameroon are classified into 3 categories, depending on their level of threat, which is actually based on population trend of these animals. So class A species are those that are integrally, totally protected by the law. Class B species, are protected as well. Class C is protected, but this category C, people can actually, do some sort of, as I'll call it, harvesting or hunting, but it has to be regulated. So even communities that are living around forests where there's wildlife, they can actually live on this because it's a source of livelihood, protein. But what they are actually supposed to be using in doing that is traditional methods of hunting, and not using shotguns or wire snares. So yes, all animals are protected, biodiversity is protected, but there are actually different degrees of protection.
I'm interested about the class A animals, because if they are class A, means they are really endangered, the
Definitely.
reason why they have been put up there in terms of protection. Talk to
Definitely.
us about some of these animals that have Class A protection status, and how does the law guarantee their protection?
Yep, so like I said earlier, Class A, totally protected, and in this class you find great apes. So all great apes are classified as Class A. We have species like the drills, mandrills, Prussus red color bus, Prussus guenon, you know, all these animals that are facing a downward trend in terms of population, and their habitats are shrinking, you know, their range is shrinking, you know, they're actually classified as Class A species. So if you were to be seen, you know, with a part, just a part of these animals anywhere, we'll consider that you went out and killed it. And in that case, you know, there are actually fines and even prison terms that go with this. Yes, but in addition to, you know, the law protecting this, the government has also set aside many areas, you know, as protected areas for not just primates but for a whole wide range of species. And so the government does a lot of protection within these areas, but we should also know that a lot of primate species live outside protected areas, and the government is working with, you know, civil society organizations and NGOs to ensure this protection within unprotected areas, as I'll put it. And in that case, there's a lot of sensitization that is going on, trying to involve the local communities that live around these areas that have rich biodiversity, especially in primates in the
I'm going to come back
conservation.
to
Yes.
I'm going to come back to talk about the law.
Yes.
And how good, you know, how does it help to guarantee the protection? We're talking in this case primates.
Yes.
But I first of all want to ask you, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges faced by primates today in Cameroon?
This is a great question. Again, just go around, you know, our towns and, you know, road linking major towns. Sometimes you find monkeys hanging on, you know, stalls by the road, you know. So I mean, the killing of animals, especially with the proliferation of illegal weapons like shotguns, you know, primates, as you know them, are very, very vocal. They make a lot of noise. They move in groups. They are always in the trees. So they are easy, you know, to be detected by hunters. And when hunters see them, what do? They just shoot them down. So hunting and the fact that the hunted wildlife is sold easily, you know, in towns and cities, makes hunting and the bushmeat trade one major, you know, threat to primates. Another threat, of course, is habitat destruction. You have logging activities that open up, you know, remote parts of the forest, cutting down trees on which these primates depend, mining activities, you know, a lot of these, you know, problems are all linked to humans. You know, that is one thing I want us to know.
Yes.
You know, so from, you know, development initiative like roads, you know, plantations, logging, all of that is actually jeopardizing the existence of, you know, not just primate but you know, wildlife in general.
And that brings me now to my question about the
Yes.
law. Do you think the regulation in place permits for protection of primates? Because we are talking about certain laws that have been enacted,
Yes.
but we see you know, wildlife primate species. We talk about monkeys, you know, gorillas, you know, there's even chimpanzees in the pet trade, and there's so much going on. And I ask myself, why do we have laws and we still have this kind of, you know, I don't know how to put it, this continuous killing of animals, continuous destruction of their habitat? How good is the regulation in place to guarantee the safety of primates?
You know, it's a mammoth challenge to reconcile conservation and development, and many people, you know, find themselves at this, you know, crossroads, you know, how to manage this. But I mean, it's, you know, just setting our priorities, you know, and going about it in such a way that we have, you know, what I'll call this One Health approach, where, you know, we have a healthy human population, a healthy environment, and healthy wildlife. And when we have, you know, this equilibrium around these three, then we have, you know, balanced development, as I'll put it. Yes, our government is doing a lot in terms of, you know, protecting our wildlife, and this is actually on the Ministry of Forestry and Wildlife, as you know. But there are
We could do
challenges,
more.
there are challenges, even for the ministries, because sometimes the resources devoted to this are not enough. Take, for example, our national parks and protected areas. These are manned by a conservator and rangers. But you'll find a national park of, I don't know, like 4,000 kilometers square with just 30 rangers. It's really difficult for them to actually, do this work effectively, on the ground. In addition to that, there's lack of, basic equipment, like vehicles and all to actually do the work. So it makes it really, really daunting for them. But the good thing is that it's not only on the Ministry of Forestry and Wildlife to do this. They are working in partnership, with civil society organizations, NGOs, international partners as well. So this, in effect, goes to boost the efforts of the ministry. But like I said, it's actually a big challenge, and I think, involving every single actor out there, making them know the importance of our biodiversity, making them understand the importance of primates, in all of our lives, because we are all part of this global ecosystem. And if we destroy it, then we are destroying our own lives. And if we can each take up our responsibility. So I think, here sensitization is really, really capital. And I'm glad your program is actually doing that. And other programs are doing that as well.
Thank you very much. Now, you are the manager of the Ebo Forest Research Project.
Yeah.
And the Ebo Forest has been described as one of Cameroon's biologically diverse hotspots. Talk to us about the biodiversity richness of the Ebo Forest.
It's a place that is just there
so
in my
close
heart,
to your heart.
really close. I talked earlier about Cameroon having 32 species of primates. Ebo on its own has almost 50% of what is found in the whole of Cameroon, because we find
huge.
That is really huge. We find 11 diurnal species of primates in Ebo. And when I talk of diurnal primates that move during the day, like we have chimpanzees, gorillas, all this range of monkeys, drills, red-cap mangabeys, all of that. And we also find the nocturnal primates, the prosumians, which have not been studied a lot, but I've seen pothos in the Ebo forest. I've seen galagos. So I mean, is this place where you find this suite of animals that is not found anywhere else, and within a concentration of 1,000 or 1,000 to 1,000 kilometers square, you find more than 14 species of primates. I think that is really, really unique, and not just primates, but up equally plants,
exactly,
other animals. So it makes it really a unique place. And I'll talk about the chimpanzees and gorillas of this forest. Now, you talked about primates. I want to tell you about primates of Ebo. So in Ebo, we find an isolated population of gorillas,
wow.
Which I don't know for how long it's been isolated from other extant populations in Cameroon, but this geographical isolation even makes it so unique, and it could even be a third subspecies of the western gorilla in Cameroon and in the world, which is really, really amazing. And the chimpanzees of Ebo, have this unique tool use repertoire, cracking nuts, using stone and wooden hammers, and fishing termites, So these are all things which we think, make Ebo, unique in many ways.
Now, talking about the unique features of the chimpanzees in the Ebo, I'm coming back to my question. Now, Dr. Ekwego, you are very passionate about primates and especially great apes. And you have been documented to be the first to witness chimpanzee using stones and wood to crack open tree nuts in Cameroon. How gratifying was such an experience for a researcher of your caliber?
It's a once in a lifetime experience to witness such a thing in the wild. But I will not take the credit for all of that, because the local communities around the Ebo forest already knew the chimpanzees in Ebo crack nuts. And so when on this day we're heading into the forest and we heard the nut cracking sounds, they told me those are chimpanzees cracking nuts. And I was like, no, it can't be. you know, this is not the place for the chimpanzees to crack nuts, for chimpanzees to crack nuts. And they said, no, it's chimpanzees. And we got there and I found chimpanzees in trees cracking nuts.
Wow.
And, you know, it was, you know, just mind blowing, you know, like seeing this behavior, which before now was thought to be limited to chimpanzees in West Africa,
Okay.
you know, found in Central Africa as well. And not just me, it actually changed a whole thing about chimpanzee cultures and especially chimpanzee nut cracking in the world. At least 2 papers were published on that, you know, including from renowned scientists. Yes.
Wow, that's very interesting. But we are talking about the Ebo forest, and logging has been identified as one of the major problems in the Ebo forest that is leading to habitat loss. How are the primates and other fauna species in this forest affected by such activities ongoing?
Yeah, it's actually a disturbing situation, because as you know, hunting is actually facilitated by access to into the forest. And if we have, you know, logging activities that open up roads into the forest, we even have a new road that is going through the forest, it means we are exposing remote parts of the forest to human activity. And so the cascading effect of, you know, the hunting pressure will actually be felt, you know, in, you know, due course. So it's really a worrying situation, I'll tell you.
And to wrap up, what you've always talked about, the need of participatory management of the forest. Talk to us about going forward, what is the best approach to conserve the biodiversity of the Ebo forest?
I mean, there's a wide range of stakeholders around the Ebo forest, including grassroots communities that have been living in and outside the forest for a very, very long time. I mean, this is their home and they depend on this, you know, for their livelihoods, okay? And so I think the best option, you know, protecting Ebo is actually to bring everybody together to what I'll call an inclusive land use planning process.
That's the term.
You know, so that, you know, the people can actually decide, you know, what are the best land use options, you know, to improve on their livelihoods, you know, to protect the biodiversity, you know, in short, just to harness, you know, the potentials we have around us for our betterment. Like I said again, there's this One Health approach where, you know, humans are first, wildlife and the environment, and we need to actually come to some sort of equilibrium with this.
And what, that was it. Any last words?
I'll just say we each have a part to play in conserving our biodiversity. You actually playing your part, and I really thank you for having me on the program. And I would just want to urge our televiewers to also play their part in conserving the rich biodiversity God has endowed us with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ikroge, for coming on our show, Planet Rise on Canal Dura International. It was such a pleasure having you. And of course, for you back at home or in your offices or comfort of your homes watching, I want to say a very big thank you for taking the rendezvous on Planet Rise with me, your regular host, Regina Leke Tanjak. I'm inviting you to take another rendezvous when it will be a fortnight. But for now, it's goodbye and God bless.
Okay.